Every birth indicates infinite possibilities of life. The society labels everyone with male or female tag at birth. However, a small group of people question their tags. They are transgender people. According to research by Williams College, around 0.6% of the US population identify as transgender. Many people mistaken transgender as a sexual orientation, but in fact, transgender is a gender identity and is not necessarily a sexual orientation. Though we cannot equal homosexuality to transgender. Transgender can be divided into 3 categories: transgender men, transgender women, and genderqueer. Transgender men, also known as FTM, refer to those who are assigned as female at birth but identify themselves as male. For example, the sociologist Li Yinghe's partner, Da Xia. Transgender women, also known as MTF, refer to those who are assigned as male at birth but identify themselves as female. An example is the renowned dancing artist Jing Xin. And regardless of gender assigned in birth, those who identify themselves as neither male or female are genderqueer, also known as non-binary people. An example is Chao Xiaomi, a popular competitor on a talk show. Because of the difference of gender identities and gender expression, trans men and women in their transition period and genderqueer who hold non-binary gender identity usually challenge the established gender norms in society. What's more, cross-dressers, those who identify themselves as their assigned gender and dress in the opposite gender, also challenge the social norms. But the difference is, cross-dressers usually identify themselves as their assigned gender, so they're not transgender. One example of cross-dresser is the Peking opera legend Mei Lanfeng. 2017 National Survey of Transgender and Gender Nonconforming Population in China was supported by the Netherlands Embassy and jointly initiated by UNDP, Peking University and Beijing LGBT Center. It is the first survey in mainland China that focuses on transgender population, which includes transgender and gender nonconforming people. The survey found that the Chinese transgender people are facing huge pressure and social discrimination in all aspects of social life, which is very concerning. Out of 2060 respondents, 60.1% have depression, 73.2% have anxiety, 46.2% have thought about committing suicide, and 12.7% have attempted suicide. If transgender is considered as a mental disorder and treated with conversion therapies, either mentally or psychologically, the trans people involved will be not only seriously hurt, but also have risk of depression and suicidal tendencies. Mental counseling for trans people is really in need. Many don't understand some trans people's need for hormonal therapies or sex reassignment surgeries. Not being able to obtain any hormones, 5% of the trans people put their lives at risk by cutting off their own genitalia. 89.1% of the trans people who have need for sex reassignment surgeries are not able to receive the operation. Finishing the sex reassignment surgeries is the only criteria to change gender on ID. Only 1% of the transgender people manage to change the genders on their IDs. If the surgery is carried out after graduation or training programs, the diploma or certificate is nearly invalidated because the genders on these papers are almost impossible to change. As to family, those who have already come out as transgender, only 6 have not experienced domestic violence. They're twice as likely as other sexual minorities to experience extreme domestic violence. Trans women experience the most severe domestic violence among trans people. Due to social bias, people tend to imagine trans people to be poorly educated. But in fact, 68.8% of the respondents have received higher education. Due to discrimination, nearly 70% of the trans people are the victims of violence on campus. Trans people have 3 times the unemployment rate of the average demographic. Over 70% of the respondents feel uncomfortable using public bathrooms. In fact, it is very narrow-minded to consider sex or gender as criteria to evaluate a person. An increasing number of trans people are speaking up in the society and proving that they can be outstanding just as everybody else. More people are starting to advocate for trans people's rights. Facebook offers 56 gender options in their user profile. Some European and Northern American countries cover gender-related surgeries and hormonal therapies in their public health care system and establish gender-neutral bathrooms. World Health Organization is working hard on the depatholization of transgender. In China, there may still be a long way to go to improve the living conditions of transgender community. But luckily, the newly announced 2017 China regulations on transgender-related surgeries have become more friendly. Apart from that, we can show our kindness to our trans friends in simple ways in everyday life. If you encounter trans people, please don't give them strange looks. If you have trans friends, take them to events and parties so that they can feel included. Compliment their dressing styles, refer to them with their preferred pronouns so that they can feel understood. If you have transgender family members, please listen to them attentively and grow with them with patience. You should know that you are not alone, because there are hundreds of thousands of trans people that are shining brightly just as the same. Let's get better together and support the trans community.